What's going on, everybody? It's Ron Brown, LMT, the People's Fitness Professional. My co-host, Mike, I don't know where he is. He may jump in. I don't know. Today is a day he's not used to getting on. But we'll see. Hold on one second. He says he'll be on a little later, so you'll see him a little later. So anyway, we got the brother, Minister Eric Muhammad of Muhammad's Temple, number 15, in the building today. Hold on one second. Sound effects, we need those. All right, thanks for coming out this evening, Sunday evening. I really appreciate this, brother. Really appreciate this. Just want to let you know the purpose of this show is to be a black media. That's the bottom line of this. This is a black media, quote unquote, podcast that is dedicated to bringing brothers and sisters together from all walks of life and all nations, be it Nation of Islam, the 5% Nation, Moorish Science, etc. And that's what this thing is all about. That's why you see Moors on this platform. You saw 5%ers on this platform. And today with Eric Muhammad, we have the Nation of Islam. So, brother Eric, how do you feel this evening?
Fine, so all praise is due to Allah for the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's peace. That's peace. So I want to go into so the title is, the Nation of Islam basics, which you should know about the NOI. Okay. Now, the podcast we did prior, it was we spoke about a lot of different things about the history and historical events that happened with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the nation in general throughout history. And if brothers want to check that one out, I'll repost it in the community. So now we've got some stuff figured out there on that one. But today I want to talk about the basics, right? So who is WD Farad or Master Farad Muhammad? And who is first? Let's start off with WD Farad.
Excellent question. Master Farad Muhammad is Almighty God, Allah in person. Now, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that when we say Allah, well, who is the we? When we, the Nation of Islam, say Allah, we mean all of us. Every righteous person is a God. That would exclude the white race. No white man is righteous. So every righteous person, meaning members of the original nation, is a God. He also teaches us that every time you look at a black man, you are looking at God. However, there is always one of us who is supreme over all of us in terms of his knowledge, his wisdom, his understanding, and therefore his power. That one today is none other than Master Wallace Farad Muhammad. So teaches the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Okay. So if you can give me a brief history of Master Farad Muhammad, um, if you could break that down, that'll be peace.
Master Farad Muhammad was born on February the 26th, 1877, in fulfillment of what the original scientists wrote of his coming. On February the 26th, 1877, he was born, and he was born of a black father, but of a white mother. The scripture teaches us that when he, God Allah, would come, that he would come in the likeness of sinful flesh to condemn sin in the flesh. Likeness of sinful flesh means he would come looking something like a white man, but the whole reason he would come looking something like a white man is because he had to be made of both people, black and white, because he would be the individual who would destroy the white man, remove the white man as a population from our planet. So he had to have the compassion and love that is part of our nature. And he had to have some of that warlike nature of the white race because he came to remove the white race as a people on our planet Earth. He spent 42 years, the messenger teaches us, studying in order to meet him, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and teach him that which would be needed for him to teach us. So he spent 42 years of study. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in Savior's Day 1973 that when he was born, his father would take him and he would go looking for bits of wisdom from great wise individuals, and he would pay high sums of money to get certain bits of wisdom from them. He also teaches us that Master Farad Muhammad came to us in the wilderness of North America in 1910, but he didn't announce himself. He didn't make himself known until 1930. So for those 20 years, he was in and out of the country. And on July the 4th, 1930, he made his presence among us known, and he began to teach us the knowledge of self. He taught us the knowledge of God. He taught us the knowledge of the devil. He taught us the knowledge of ourselves, and he taught us the knowledge of others. It was the first time in 66 trillion years that the knowledge of the person and the reality of God had been taught in the public. So we've been given a pretty large gift in the person of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad as a teacher from Master Farad Muhammad. He remained among us after his coming, or he made his presence known July 1930. He left sometime, if I remember correctly, in the late spring of 1934. He spent 3 years and 4 months, night and day, preparing the most honorable Elijah Muhammad to be his representative to us. This is where you get your supreme lessons from. The supreme wisdom lessons are a quiz, a verbal quiz of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad given to him by Master Farad Muhammad based on the 3 years and 4 months of night and day teaching of him. So he would ask him questions, and the most honorable Elijah Muhammad answered those questions. And we were told, those of us who are students of the supreme wisdom, to learn by heart and recite the answers of Messenger Elijah Muhammad. So when you see the question in Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, why doesn't the devil, or why isn't the devil settled on the best part of the planet Earth? That's a question Master Farad Muhammad in particular is asking Elijah Muhammad in particular. And the messenger answers that question and the other 13 questions, and they became the 1 to 14, or better known as Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1. You also have English lesson C1 and Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, making up the 120 Supreme Wisdom lessons. Master Farad Muhammad taught the messenger for 3 years and 4 months, and then at the end of that, if you notice on the lesson number 2, the 1 to 40, it says first term examination of Mr. Elijah Muhammad. All students should learn by heart and recite these answers. So this is where you have the questions and the answers in the Supreme Wisdom lessons. And after he tested his messenger and he passed the test, he went away from us. And he was to remain away from us for a certain time. And that time represents the time when the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said he would win everything to himself. That's a basic, short description of who Master Farad Muhammad is. We can get into details with more questions.
Okay. Now, of course, this is like the $1 million question
Yes, sir.
for Master Farad Muhammad is so his mom you said was white
Yes,
and
sir.
his dad you said was black.
Right.
What ethnic or what nationality I would say was his dad and what nationality was his mom? So was his mom from, I don't know, Germany? Was his dad from the Caribbean? Was he from, I don't know his parents' history.
As far as his mother is concerned, I know of no teaching from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad that identifies the specific country that she was indeed from. All we were taught was that his father went up into the hills and found himself a wife. I know the messenger said, he could go into more of what the hills were or where the hills were, he said, but he had to make sure that those in the hills were okay with him letting that be known.
Gotcha.
As far as his father, I know of no teaching of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad that says he was from this city in uh, uh, Saudi Arabia or whatever. What we do know is Master Farad Muhammad is from the family of scientists, and he is from a father who was one of the 12 major scientists. They passed the knowledge down of who Allah actually is. The very person of Allah has been kept a secret among those 12 men for 66 trillion years. And so we know Master Farad Muhammad is the son of one of those scientists. What city he is from, I can't tell you that. I don't know any teaching of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, like Yaqub. Yaqub was born 20 miles outside of the holy city Mecca. We don't have a teaching that tells us Master Farad Muhammad was born 5 miles outside or 10 miles or 15 miles outside. We don't have a teaching like that I am aware of.
Okay. Okay. Good answer. Now, let's go into Elijah Muhammad's history. Most honorable
Okay.
Elijah Muhammad. His history. Um, where was he born? Um, and how did he meet W.D. Farad?
The most honorable Elijah Muhammad was born in the month of October. This teaching that he was born on the 7th, we reject. Because the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said himself he didn't know what day in October he was born. He said all he knows is every time October passes, he's another year old. So he was born in October 1897, Sandersville, Georgia. He lived in Georgia until he was approximately 23 years old, and he moved to Detroit. And when he moved to Detroit, he succumbed to the mental death that all of us have found ourselves in.
Yes, sir.
And his description of his condition was that he was so far down in the mud, meaning the mud of the white man's civilization. He was so far down in the mud that he only had one eyeball sticking out. Now, this doesn't mean the most honorable Elijah Muhammad was in physical mud, covered with his whole body, just an eye sticking out. He was describing his mental condition, the degree of his mental depth. And he said that, or we were taught that it was his wife, really, Sister Clara Muhammad, that saw Master Farad Muhammad and was exposed to his teaching at first, and then she got her husband to come and to hear Master Farad Muhammad teach. Now, there is an interview, I don't know exactly how to describe the particular site where you can find it, But there's an interview where the messenger says that when he first heard Master Farad Muhammad, something inside of him told him who Master Farad Muhammad was. Now, I don't mean anything spooky. I'm simply saying, you know, we have instinct. You can meet a certain person and your instinct will tell you that this person is not someone you want to deal with. You can meet a certain person and you have an instinct that this is a person you want to get close with. When he met Master Farad Muhammad, he instinctively knew that Master Farad Muhammad was the man who the prophets predicted would come. And he told Master Farad Muhammad, I know who you are. You're the one the world has been waiting for the past 2,000 years. And Master Farad Muhammad, he said, got a stern look on his face. And he told him, he said, yes, you know that, but who else knows that? And he told him to keep quiet about that. He asked the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, not necessarily that particular meeting, but he asked the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad not to teach too much about him while he was among us. Wait until he's gone, and then he can reveal his true identity. So once Master Farad Muhammad departed from among us, that's when the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad began to teach that Master Farad Muhammad is not a prophet. Because we called him Prophet Farad. He said, no, he's not a prophet. He's Allah God in person. He is the second coming of Jesus. He is the exalted Christ.
Got you. Okay. Now, he moved to Detroit, met W.D. Farad, and how did it all start as far as the Nation of Islam is concerned, as far as you know?
I'm glad you asked that question as well. Much to my displeasure, while going on my Facebook page, I noticed that there was a post from a hater of the Nation of Islam, a former member, I have to say a former member of the Nation of Gods and Earth, who has turned hypocrite, in my view, who no longer subscribes to the supreme wisdom that we were given, and he made a post. And in that post, this is what I sent you in that text message. In that post, he mentioned this apparently Sunni Muslim named Bilal Muhammad. And this apparently Sunni Muslim named Bilal Muhammad, who is an educated Negro of the white man, calls himself revealing the true history of Master Farad Muhammad. And in this so-called true history of Master Farad Muhammad is described as a silk peddler who sold silk to black people in Detroit in the early 1930s, and who, in order to come up with his actual facts, he simply went to the Library of Congress and found a World Almanac and plagiarized the actual facts from this World Almanac. Master Farad Muhammad was not a silk peddler. That's not how the Nation of Islam got started, him running around knocking on doors selling silk. Nobody had enough money to buy cotton. How in the hell was we going to buy silk? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's like we don't even think about the things that people shovel to us and tell us it's the truth. Black people were so poor. This was in the era of the Depression. Black people were so poor in the hood in Detroit. I mean, it was called Black Bottom. Nobody had any money. The messenger teaches when we wanted to do something for Master Farad Muhammad, we would give him ties and handkerchiefs and whatever because we didn't have any money. How in the world were we going to buy silk? It's ridiculous. Who sells silk to Negroes who are so poor they can hardly pay attention? Master Farad Muhammad took measurements for tailor-made suits. And if any smart aleck is saying, well, we couldn't afford suits either, he didn't sell no suits. He took measurements. If I come to your house and I knock on your door and I say I'm taking measurements for tailor-made suits, I'm just using that to get in the door. I'm not actually selling you anything.
Right.
That's just a way to get a conversation started. He would get conversation started by using the bait. He just wanted to take our physical measurements for some clothes. And when he would speak to us about the knowledge of self, we would become interested, and he would spend time teaching us and tell us to invite other people to come and hear the same. And so there would be meetings in homes. Well, that got too big. Then they started renting halls. That got too big. And so he would have to teach in shifts at these particular halls. Certain amount come, teach them, get them out, bring another group in, teach them, get them out, bring another group in. It got so big that over the course of the years he was teaching, he gave out 25,000 holy and righteous names.
Wow.
Yes, 25,000 received their original names from Master Farad Muhammad. When you write a letter now, you get an X. But when you wrote your letter then, you got your name because the man who was giving names was present. So you weren't going to get an X in lieu of Master Farad Muhammad giving you a name when he was right there to just give it to you. So you had all kinds of holy and righteous names that were given at that particular time. Master Farad Muhammad was harassed by law enforcement. He was arrested several times. He eventually was ordered out of Detroit for his teaching of the black man against the white man. He was ordered out of Detroit and went to Chicago, and Messenger Elijah Muhammad said he was locked up soon as he hit Chicago. But each time the messenger said that he was arrested and jailed, he would call for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to come and get him, because he was training his messenger what it was going to be like for him to represent him in his absence. And for the 40 years that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, Master Farad Muhammad was not physically present among us, but he was backing his messenger the whole time, and he was in frequent communication with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad during those 40 years. That's something that we don't realize. We seem to believe that Master Farad Muhammad just got ghosts, and that was it. Nobody ever heard from him again. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was in communication with Master Farad Muhammad several times throughout that 40 years of Master Farad Muhammad's absence.
Okay. Wow. All right. There's so many, like, because I just did a podcast with brother Dr. Aleem Bey from the Washita Ding Dung Demunya Nation, and he said that Waris Dean Muhammad was saying that he was in communication with W.D. Farad as well.
That's not true.
Okay.
Wallace D. Muhammad said it. That is true, but he was never in communication with Master Farad Muhammad. You know, the Holy Quran, brother, teaches us when an unrighteous man brings you news, and I can't think of a more unrighteous man than Wallace Dean Muhammad. When an unrighteous man brings you news, look carefully into it. Looking carefully into what Wallace Dean Muhammad said, on most occasions, you will turn out, or you will find out, that he was lying. Wallace Dean Muhammad was a notorious liar. Wallace Dean Muhammad is the one who flipped Malcolm against the messenger, and then when everything blew up, he denied that he even told Malcolm what he told Malcolm to put the battery in Malcolm's back that ended up with Malcolm being assassinated.
Hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So I got to rewind back to now 25,000 members. From that point of having 25,000 members after going from hall to hall to hall, what was the next step from there? Was it now I'm going to go get a piece of property, I'm going to collect dues? How did that come about? Like
During
the first temple. Yeah.
he set up Muhammad's Temple number 1 in Detroit, Michigan. I do not know the address of it. Certainly, there was no building with 25,000 members in it. He set up Muhammad's Temple number 1 in Detroit, Michigan. When he was ordered out of Detroit, he established Temple number 2 in Chicago, Illinois. We also know that before he left, there was a temple in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I don't know if the temple in Washington had been established yet. I'm not the world's greatest historian. I know there were at least 3, probably 4 temples at the time of Master Farad Muhammad's departure. And when he departed, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad assumed the leadership of the Nation of Islam. Master Farad Muhammad told the leadership, not the leadership, but the membership of the Nation of Islam that Elijah Muhammad was his choice. Unfortunately, when Master Farad Muhammad departed, you had an outbreak of hypocrisy. And the temples who had thousands of members went down to almost nothing. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad ended up having to rebuild almost from scratch, not entirely, but almost from scratch, because they didn't want to accept his leadership. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not viewed as the most eloquent among them. You know, all of the things that make us personality worshipers. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't have enough of those qualities that people worship in someone's personality that would make them accept him as the leader. And so they chased him up and down the East Coast. He could never stay in one place for any longer than 2 weeks. And he would use aliases. He couldn't go everywhere saying Elijah Muhammad. He used all kinds of aliases, and he would bounce, pardon my slang, from place to place to place. And during that 7 years, that is when he completed his assignment of reading the 104 books that Master Farad Muhammad gave him to read. And most of them were in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. Now, during those 7 years, the temples weren't making a lot of progress. After those 7 years, America goes to war, and they locked the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad up for about 5 years. So he gets out in 1946, if I remember correctly, and that's when the real building of the Nation of Islam begins, now that the messenger no longer has to run from place to place and he's no longer in prison. And from 1946 until the mid to late 1950s, you saw an explosion in the growth of the Nation of Islam.
In the 1940s. Okay. Okay. Now, how were the after the 1940s? How was the Nation of Islam, able to maintain its influence in the black community, even at right now to this day, 2024, the Nation of Islam is definitely a nation in our community where everyone looks to, to stop conflict, security, or even ask questions or go to for some insight. How are the Nation of Islam? How is the Nation of Islam able to maintain its influence in the Black community?
We are righteous people by nature. And so the truth appeals to us. It's just natural for us to gravitate towards the truth. And a people who have suffered what we have suffered, you would automatically or you would naturally expect them to attract to a message of upliftment, like the message of the Nation of Islam. Now, I will say this, it is a very unfortunate reality that the overwhelming majority of us don't know the Nation of Islam. To us, anybody and everybody in a suit and a bow tie, anybody and everybody eating a bean pie is the Nation of Islam. And so there's a lot of influence that is considered Nation of Islam influence, some of it good, some of it not so good. That's not really the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam is the doctrine and practice of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. If the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't teach it, it's not the Nation of Islam. If the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't institute it as a practice, it's not the Nation of Islam. Now, if you like somebody who's calling themselves the Nation of Islam and you appreciate all the good that they have done from your perspective or whatever, that's fine. We're not losing any sleep over that, and we're not playing hating about that. But that's not the Nation of Islam. And those of us who are followers of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is the only leader of the Nation of Islam, we make it very, very clear that Elijah Muhammad, I don't care whether he's dead or alive, I don't care whether he's here or not here, Elijah Muhammad remains the leader of the Nation of Islam. The real Nation of Islam, my brother, is very, very small and seemingly insignificant. Seemingly. But the real Nation of Islam is giving the fake nations of Islam a run for their money.
Got you. Now with the Nation of Islam throughout the years, I was born in 1980, right? So like what I saw from 1980 and through the 90s, well, of course, when I was in the 80s, I was a baby basically. In the 90s, what I saw in reference to the Nation of Islam was, Farrakhan's Minister Farrakhan's demonstration, as well as also the parodies on the Nation of Islam brought to you by In Living Color and stuff like that. So would you say that these parodies and mockeries of the Nation of Islam took the significance away from the Nation of Islam and to the public? Would you say the Nation of Islam isn't taken as serious as it should be because of the parodies and the mockeries?
You have three types of people: believers, disbelievers, and hypocrites. Those who are disbelievers and hypocrites, I'll give you a verse from the Quran. The Quran teaches that when Allah desires to guide a people, He expands their breast for Islam. And when He desires to leave them in error, He makes it straight and narrow as if they were ascending upwards. There are those who lean away from the truth, and there are those who have a leaning towards the truth. Those who have a diseased heart, yes, those parodies would definitely serve the purpose of declining the respect for the Nation of Islam. But if your heart is not diseased, then you don't become influenced by those parodies. The bottom line is the truth is the truth, and you either accept it or you reject it. Now, I will also say this: any publicity is good publicity. Any publicity is good publicity. And that's why we are told the story of the donkey in the ditch. And you had people who would mock the donkey that was in the ditch, throwing stones at the donkey in the ditch. Well, they threw so many stones that it filled up the ditch, and the donkey was able to walk up out of the ditch. And so that's where the term every knock is a boost comes from.
Mm.
So for those of us who don't have a diseased heart, those parodies, they simply bring us closer to the Nation of Islam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The nation seeing that Malcolm and fight the power, Public Enemy, all those things, all those images kept me on the straight and narrow path of righteousness. Hence the reason why I'm here doing this right now. I've been righteous for a long, long, long time, and I was influenced by that era.
That's peace.
And I think you too, right, Mike?
Exactly. Peace, brother. Eric Muhammad, how you doing? And I have a question to ask, man. It's something from years ago. Are you still following that strict diet of fasting and having just navy beans and 1 cup of milk?
No, I was never on a diet of only navy beans and a cup of milk. No.
Okay.
But
All right.
I eat a lot of things.
All right.
I just only eat them once every 3 days.
All right. Yeah, that's
So yes, I am still on that diet. In fact, I haven't eaten since Thursday.
Wow. That's good.
So today is a day where, pardon my expression, but it's going down.
Now, respect, because I seen you did an interview about that. Like, oh, that's powerful, because I was following a diet like that where I eat once a day. I was telling you about that around a year ago, right? I eat once a day. Like, I eat once a day. Or I may skip a day and just have one meal.
Yeah,
and that's it. It's less taxing on the body,
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right,
so I got into from the 5% Nation. I got into fasting for 3 days, and I do it from time to time. And just recently, I fasted for 3 days, and I think I'm gonna fast again this month. However, I wanted to. That was a good question, Mike. Man, I didn't want to go there yet, though. Oh man. Come on, you're getting ahead of it. I wanted to wait for like
my bad. It just happens like that.
Don't have me going on a diet thing, because I'll go too far with that. But let's go to the questions. How does the NOI function originally? How do you join? What's the process after joining?
All right. As a lost found, you would be exposed to the teaching of Master Farad Muhammad through the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And at the end of the meeting, you would be asked the question: how many of you believe what you heard was good and true and will help Black people? Raise your hand. How many of you believe that what you heard was not good or true and will not help Black people? Raise your hand. All right. So now, after raising your hand and confessing that you believe what you heard was good, you said you believed it was true, and you said you believed it would help Black people, then you would be asked the question, well, how many of you will be willing to join on to your own kind and become a member of your own nation? And if you accept it, then you would be given a Savior's letter. A letter that you would write to Master Farad Muhammad. In his absence, you would write that letter to him, but you would write it in care of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And if you wrote that letter according to the instructions and it passed examination, then you began what is called processing. And you would be sent certain material, and at the end of that process, you would recite the 1 to 10 called student enrollment.
Right.
and you would recite the actual facts, and you would have to recite them right and exact. And if you recited them right and exact to an individual and a witness that you recited it right and exact, then you would become what is called a registered member. You would be given an X to X out your slave master's name, and an X symbolizing the unknown, meaning we don't know what characteristics are predominant in you that would make your name manifest.
Mhm. Okay.
Then from there on, let me add this. Then from there on, you would begin a process of military training. And that is absolutely and vitally necessary. Teaching without training is church. And we are not trying to be in church. We're trying to get away from church. Teaching without training is church. Knowing the supreme wisdom and not having the military training of the men who belong to Islam in North America is not good. We must have FOI training. And the one that you would get your teaching and training from is called lieutenant. What is the meaning of LIEUT period and CAPT period? Captain and lieutenant. The duty of the captain is to give orders to the lieutenant, and the lieutenant's duty is to teach the private soldiers,
Right.
also train them. Many of us are running around with the supreme wisdom, never had a lieutenant. So how do you know what to do with it? Never had a lieutenant. You haven't been trained. And so FOI training is vitally necessary because it is that training that gives us the knowledge of how to apply the supreme wisdom.
Mhm.
You know, in the mathematics, it says wisdom is the ways and actions that one uses to make his knowledge known. It's the ways and actions. Well, ways and actions come from training.
Now, can you give me an example of the training?
We're taught military drill, that's for certain. We're taught self-defense.
Okay.
We're taught various things with respect to health and hygiene. You know, I can't go into the details of the training on this video,
Right.
but I can tell you this. Those of us who are serious about Islam, our favorite day is FOI training day. You know, the Sunday meeting and you getting all that teaching, we like that. Trust me, we like it. But our favorite day is the training. We like the training.
Oh man, is it rigorous? I know it's very
It
rigorous.
it can be very rigorous. It can be, yes, sir.
That's peace, man. So I have a question, right?
Yes.
What particular literature is mandatory for members of the FOI or Nation of Islam?
Message to the Black Man, Holy Quran, so-called Holy Bible. Our Savior has arrived. Fall of America. How to Eat to
Theology of
Live
Time.
Book 1. How to Eat to Live Book 2. Supreme Wisdom Book 1. Supreme Wisdom Book 2.
Mhm. How about Theology of Time? Is added to that as well? Oh no.
Well, Theology of Time is a series of lectures. Now, there has been
Mm.
a book, actually, there have been two books written called The Theology of Time, but it doesn't cover all of the theology of time. It's not like it's a transcript of every single lecture the messenger gave in 1972. The best way to learn what was taught in the theology of time is to actually listen to all of the lectures.
Got
Okay.
you.
Okay. That was thorough. Okay, let's go to the next question. Well, you already said that. Well, you already said that. Let's go with what are the benefits of memorizing supreme wisdom? Being that supreme wisdom, memorizing supreme wisdom is vitally important. I've done my own research as far as like how good it is for the brain, like just memory in general, and
Mhm.
uh you know, but you know, I want to hear from you. What's the importance of it?
Well, if I told you what the benefits of memorizing the lessons would, I would really be giving you my perspective on that. Like, there's no canon, there's no Nation of Islam teaching that says this is what happens when you memorize the lessons.
Mhm, mhm.
What I can say is this: the most basic, from my perspective now, the most basic benefit from knowing the lessons is, what if something happens? And you know, being black in white America, something can happen real quick. What if something happened and you locked up? You're not taking your book of life with you to prison. And they're not going to be able to send you, anybody is not going to be able to send you supreme wisdom, and the devils look at the supreme wisdom, you know, tell us what and how the devil is made. So the devil is examining what you sent, and you know, the devil is made by grafting, you know, by separating the germs. And he's sitting here reading you, talking about him like the two-legged dog he happens to be. You're not getting that. So it's best to have it up here.
Got you. All right. All right.
That's understandable.
Understandable.
It's etched into your memory, so you could just reteach that over and over again, and
That's right.
write out your own if ever you're in that position.
If ever you
Um,
need to. That's right.
are men and women are required to memorize the supreme wisdom?
That's an excellent question. Absolutely. The idea that some of us have that you don't necessarily have to memorize the entire 120 is absolutely insane. It literally says, I mean, when you get your student enrollment, it says student enrollment, rules of Islam. The following questions must be answered 100% before submitting of student to said lesson number one.
Hmm.
The typical average Muslim never gets past student enrollment in actual facts, never learns lesson number one. But the student enrollment tells them that it is a step that you have to complete in order to be submitted to said lesson number one. You're supposed to be submitted to said lesson number one after that. Now, you have the English lesson C1 that doesn't have anything specifically said about itself. But then when you get to the 1 to 40, Lost by Muslim lesson number two, it says every student should learn and memorize until they can recite by heart these lessons. So it is absolutely amazing how many Muslims don't know their lessons. It's amazing. We are supposed to know them. And I would also add this: when Wallace Dean Muhammad took over the Nation of Islam, he got rid of all of that. And he took us back to spook worship. And I'm not saying this to pander to the God, but truth is truth and right is right. If it had not been for the members of the 5% nation, that supreme wisdom would have been something of the past. Nobody was reciting, nobody was keeping the supreme wisdom alive like the gods was keeping it alive. Nobody was keeping the reality of God, the black man being God, the way the gods were keeping it alive. We threw it away and followed Wallace Dean Muhammad back into spook worship. I can only say, thank God. Somebody kept it all the way 100 as far as the black man being God is concerned.
That's
But
deep.
as Muslims, yes, we stress that you must know At this temple, we stress that.
You hear that, Ron? Ron always saying that. Gotta be on my lessons, man. So, and shout out to the 5%ers for real, because they're very heavy about knowing your lessons. Because I remember there was compare and contrast between the 120 and Supreme Wisdom. Just like the language, some language is different. I'm not gonna get into that on this podcast, but
I don't want to get into that.
yeah, certain languages are used, and
I mean, eventually.
Yeah.
But I want to get into this. This is a question.
Mhm.
Are the lessons literal or allegorical?
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. The lessons are literal. I don't go for that crap about the lessons being allegorical. The lessons are literal. Literal. And I defy anybody to demonstrate that they're not.
All right.
Please, I have one. What is the significance of the problem book?
The problem book represents mathematical problems, word problems that were given to us, that the solving of teach us lessons about our condition and how to get up out of the condition.
Gotcha.
That's what the whole problem book is about.
Now, I don't know if you ever have you seen that book, Mike, but the problems in that book.
Yeah. Very complex. I've seen quite a few. I different interpretations. There was a brother out in Philly who has his own. It's something called Fallen Angels or Lost Fallen Angels. His version of the problem book, his interpretation. I don't want to say version. His interpretation from what he got from it. And I see a lot of people have they spin on it, but it's pretty deep, man.
Yes, sir.
It takes some time to really sit down, and you got to really focus in.
That's
and
a brain worker, man.
Yeah,
that's a lifting weights with that one right there.
Yeah, man.
So
I'm not gonna lie, I always like the FOI and NOI. Like something about that, like that outside of the militancy, it's like the discipline and how all the brothers are sharp, even within the nation of gods and earth. Like, the brothers are very sharp, how they speak, they concise, clear. They just don't accept things at face value. So
right.
I like that. You guys go to the core of any
sir.
situation. It's all mathematical. So peace to y'all for real.
I want to go into what are the main books we should make sure we read? I think you covered that already.
Yes, we do.
And
you want me to mention them again?
I mean, if you want to, I'm pretty clear on it.
Like, before he goes forward, do you have any publications of your own that you have written that people go out there and look for?
I don't need to write any books.
All right.
Nobody needs a book written by Minister Eric Muhammad.
Why is that?
Because the book's already there.
Yeah, it's already all right.
That's it.
Right.
It's already completed.
Already.
Got you, brother.
Let me say this about the books, though.
Mm-hmm.
Those of us who have studied the Supreme Wisdom and we haven't had FOI training, this is how I would describe. Now, I don't know Eric haters or Nation of Islam haters take it too serious, but this is how I would describe functionally the necessity of reading the books. The Supreme Wisdom lessons are just that, Supreme Wisdom lessons. The books, I would say, serve the purpose that plus degrees serve. So when you're reading Message to the Black Man, you're reading a plus degree. When you read Our Savior Has Arrived, Fall of America, How to Eat to Live 1 and 2, Supreme Wisdom 1 and 2, even when you are reading the Holy Quran, you're reading a plus degree.
Got you. Okay.
But not as much the Quran, though. I would say that the Supreme Wisdom lessons are the understanding of the Quran and the Bible, but the books written, the Nation of Islam books written by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, those are plus degrees, quote unquote.
Quote unquote.
And plus degrees serve the purpose of bringing a superior understanding of the lessons, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what the books do.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to get into, um, and of course, I don't want to ask too much because I want you to come up again. The whole purpose of bringing you on is to basically give people the Nation of Islam the way it's supposed to be taught. So, you know, that was my whole purpose. Because I watch you on Facebook for some time, and I'm like, yeah, he has it. You know what I mean? So, I want to talk about the purpose of. So I looked into, you know, different nations who are the most successful financially in America, right? And the top, I would say three was, I think, Indian, Asian, and then Jewish, and then it went Anglo-Saxon, and then it went at the bottom, of course, so-called blacks and Hispanics. Now, I looked at the Indian culture, the Asian culture, and I thought about it. I realized, like, the way their culture is set up is for them to save money, keep money, um, and pass it on through generations. They even have arranged marriages and in the Indian culture, and uh, you know, their family structure is tight. So I wanted to know, like, the way the Nation of Islam is set up as far as relationships is concerned, saving money for clothing, saving money on food. It's a, I would say, a more effective culture for black people in America to get ahead socially and economically. Would you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. To put it in the somewhat slang term that I use when I'm teaching and training, Muhammad will put a knot in your pocket. You know what a knot is, of course. Muhammad will put a knot in your pocket. If you broke, you're not following the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And if you're following the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you ain't got to be out here flossing, but trust me, you're not broke. And anybody who thinks you broke don't know what the hell they talking about. If you're a follower of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and you literally are following the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, people may think you ain't got no money. You may not be balling, but you certainly ain't broke.
Now, does it have anything to do, like, so how is it like with like the clothing? Uh, because I've learned something a while back about thrifting from the Nation of Islam, and you know, getting. We're not, you brothers and sisters are not trying to, you know, wear the best, like the, what you call it, the
The
European
latest and the
stuff,
brands.
China, yeah, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Which is a waste of time. It's a waste of your time and your money because
Yeah.
the manufacturing pays the workers that make the clothes less than a nickel a day, and you're just paying the taxes on that clothes when it gets here to the U.S. So basically, you just got pimped. You're just paying for a name of somebody who doesn't even like you.
Bottom line, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to seek some of this earth that we can call our own. We need earth. The most economic thing we can do is to get some of this earth. Once we have some of this earth, then we can grow the cotton and produce the mills to mill the cotton into cloth and then manufacture that cloth into the things that we need. We need some earth first. And once we get some earth, then we have all the materials that we need in order to furnish ourselves with clothing. Now, in the meantime, like the brother talked about, we're taught to spend the least amount of money in Message to the Black Man, a plus degree. We're taught to spend the least amount of money for clothes and shoes. It's amazing how many Muslims don't follow that. Spend the least amount of money for clothes and shoes. To see Muslims running around with fur coats and, you know, suits that cost several $100s, alligator and lizard and whoever knows what kind of shoes that cost so and so much money. That's not the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we look ridiculous doing that type of thing when we have nothing as a nation of people. So we spend the least amount of money in clothes and shoes because we're not trying to impress anybody. If you look at the so-called Jew, you don't see them wearing all of these name brand clothes. If you look at their clothes, they're so plain, it's ridiculous. Who got more money than that Jew? But he's not trying to impress anybody with how much money he has. He takes his money and spends his money on Israel. And that's what we've got to learn. We've got to learn to be, I hate to say it, but be more like them. We got to spend money on nationhood. That's where we got to funnel all of our money. We need to do something for ourselves as a nation. Forget about individualism. We need to do something for ourselves as a nation. Until we are an independent nation of people, like the other civilized nations of the earth, doing for ourselves the things that other people do for themselves. We don't have no money to be wasting on expensive clothes and shoes and things of that nature. All of that's promised to us anyway. But we got to do the basics first.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now the food also. I have a question from the chat. I'm gonna put that chat up, brother. AYB More Films. Before I do that, the question about the food, the way, like eating one meal a day or eating one meal every 3 days, every 2 days, that also helps you save money as well. Was that right? So do you think that was a was that intentionally put there for health and economic reasons?
Well, the eating of one meal a day and then one meal every other day and then eventually one meal every 3 days is for health and health only. The economic savings is a collateral benefit. You also have to take into consideration that the more your stomach remains idle, the longer it will last. And the longer it lasts, the longer you will live. And the longer you live, that is more productive years of you earning and saving money. And so, being healthier, you also save money on medical bills.
Yes, sir.
So, it's a collateral benefit, but it's so large a benefit that it would make you ask, was that the reason why it was instituted?
Hey, brother, do you know right now? Because I'm a part of the fitness industry. Man, one meal a day right now is so big, and intermittent fasting is so big in the fitness industry is crazy. When I started seeing it like become a fad, I'm like, the first thing that came to mind was Nation of Islam and the 5% Nation. Like, is just mind blowing. So when if I want to encourage you, brothers and sisters out there, research on the benefits of eating one meal a day.
Exactly.
You're gonna see so many different things: body fat, body composition, body fat loss, testosterone hikes, muscle building. Like, there's so much. When you brothers check that out, I'm telling you, you're gonna be amazed. Like all the research behind that.
Can
Now,
I add spiritually also when it keeps you in tune, like one with the universe, not in the spooky, but you're not like easily swayed. Like you have more control over your temper because when you eat a lot of food, as they say, you are what you eat. You could either be lethargic, you're raging like an animal, you're behaving as such. When your body's being, as I said, mentioned earlier, being less taxed, working hard, things are much easier, man.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Much
We're gonna
more
go
easier.
with this question before we cut out. Okay. Does the NOI teach constitutional law or citizens' rights to its members?
I'm not sure what the questioner is looking for. As a nation, of course, we teach law, but we teach the restricted laws of the Nation of Islam. Uh, as far as constitutional law, well, whose constitution? We don't teach the white man's constitutional law except as it benefits us as a weapon to use against him or as a weapon to defend ourselves from him. So, we are encouraged to learn the teaching of Islam first, but then to study everything else we can get our hands on afterwards. And so, constitutional law, I mean, we have lawyers in the Nation of Islam. We need defense against the white man coming at us with respect to litigation. So, learning constitutional law, if we're talking about the American Constitution, is something that's good for us to know so we can defend ourselves against his attacks legally. And so we can attack him when we need to legally. Citizens' rights, I can't see how citizens' rights would be something different. Again, our rights as so called citizens are something we can often use in the white man's courts to fight him on various issues. However, we are not citizens of America, nor do we have any rights under the Constitution of America ultimately. And I think it was it Dred Scott? Was it that decision? Was it the Dred Scott decision or Plessy versus Ferguson? I'm not sure right now. But it has been determined by the Supreme Court that a black man has no rights in America that a white man is bound to respect. And the Constitution defines an American as anyone who is not a member of the Aboriginal people. We are an Aboriginal people, and therefore, constitutionally, we have no rights. And as I said, the Supreme Court has backed that up. Now, don't get me wrong. We know that the white man plays a game with us, and we play the game with him. And when it comes to the white man, we hate the player and the game, not just the game. We hate the player and the game. And so we play the game with the white man where necessary. And so, yes, we learn various things of the Constitution, we learn the law, and we learn what our so-called rights are as so-called citizens, and we use it to our benefit when and wherever necessary.
Okay. We have another question here. Did the messenger Elijah Muhammad give Minister Malcolm Shabazz in set up temples under his order? I guess two.
Did Messenger Elijah Muhammad give Malcolm Shabazz? It seems as though the question is, did the messenger give Malcolm permission, or did he give Malcolm the job of setting up temples under his orders? And the answer is yes. Every minister, though, not just Malcolm, every minister of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has not only the permission, but the duty to set up other temples under his order.
Okay.
I'd also like to say that I'm impressed with the fact that that individual referred to him as Malcolm Shabazz. A lot of people don't realize that Malcolm's last name was an X. They don't realize his name was Malcolm Shabazz.
That's peace right there. The Lost Tribe of Shabazz. I seen that book.
I want to go into the Lost Tribe of Shabazz, but I'm not going to do that right now.
Yeah,
we want the brother to keep coming up. We want him to keep coming up. Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate you, brother Minister, brother Eric Muhammad. Appreciate you for coming up. To our listeners and our viewers, don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. The brother came on here, did a great, phenomenal job. You got to come back again.
Gotta
get more into the literature.
Yes,
the Lost Tribe of Shabazz. I read that a few months ago, so that book was pretty deep, man. But we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
Looking forward to the next time.
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
Thanks for coming out this evening. I really appreciate you, brother. Peace to the chat. Peace to everyone checking it out. If you caught the live late, rewind, start from the top, and then of course to the finish. Have a good evening. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace.
Hey.